My ML secretly DNA tested my 3 kids, then called me trash when she found out the truth. You ever feel someone watching you with a smile so fake it feels like a weapon? That was Judith, my mother-in-law. She never yelled, never cursed. She just smiled, like she was waiting for proof I wasn't good enough for her son. And she got what she wanted, at least she thought she did. Because the day she found out my daughter Haley wasn't Mark's biological child, she didn't just confront me. She called me trash. In front of my kids. In front of my husband. At our dining table, during Sunday lunch. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was the truth. And that truth broke her in court later. Let me back up. My name is Amanda Carter. I've been married to Mark for 13 years. We've got 3 kids, Haley, who's 12, Ethan, 10, and Liam, 7. We live in Nashville, where family dinners and Sunday church aren't optional. They're expected. Judith, my MIL, lives 15 minutes away and still treats my husband like he's 15. Her word is law. Her tone is gospel. And if you don't agree, you're emotional. You know the type. She didn't like me from the start. Said I was too quiet. Too modern. Not enough church. Too much therapy. But we made it work. Or I did. Before we go further, don't forget to like this story, hit subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss what happens next. I let her host Christmas. I let her pinch my kids' cheeks and complain about their haircuts. I let her backhand compliments slide. I swallowed the eye rolls. I kept the peace. Until the peace broke. And it broke in my kitchen, over a plate of deviled eggs, while Haley sat next to me reading quietly. It was Sunday. Judith had come over for her weekly check-in. She brought lemon pie and fake smiles. My husband was in the garage with our boys. Haley and I were clearing the table. Normal. Until she said it. So, anything you'd like to confess, Amanda? I blinked. Excuse me. She folded her napkin slowly. Deliberately. Like she'd rehearsed. Because I already know. Know what? That Mark isn't Haley's father. Silence. I felt Haley's shoulders stiffen next to me. I stood frozen. What the hell are you talking about, Judith? DNA doesn't lie, she said, standing now, voice rising just enough. Unlike you. Turns out, she had secretly taken Haley's toothbrush 2 weeks earlier while babysitting. Sent it to some sketchy online lab. Matched it to a sample from Mark's old hairbrush. No legal authority. No consent. No decency. Just pure obsession. And the test? Came back negative for paternity. Mark walked in right as she said it again. She's not his. She's not a Carter. He dropped the wrench in his hand. What the hell's going on? Judith turned to him, eyes gleaming. She's been lying to you. For over a decade. And me? I just stared at her. Because I knew this moment would come one day. But I didn't think it would come like this. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Not because I was guilty. Because I knew this wasn't about cheating. This was about trauma. About a night I never wanted to speak of again. And now? It was standing in my kitchen with lemon pie and judgment. Mark looked at me. Confused. Hurt. Amanda. Haley was staring at me now. Eyes wide. Lips trembling. Mom. So I told them. Right there. Right then. I told them everything. Told them about the night in college, before Mark. The night I was walking back to my car after closing at the diner. The man who followed me. The alley. The hospital. The test I took 2 weeks later. And how I decided, after crying on a bathroom floor, to keep the baby. Because she had my eyes. Because she gave me a reason to live again. Because Haley was not a mistake. She was my miracle. Judith didn't flinch. Didn't apologize. She actually scoffed. So now it's assault? That's convenient. Mark's face turned white. Mom. Stop. You're really going to fall for this? She traps you with a child that isn't yours, and now she wants sympathy? She's been my daughter for 12 years, Mark said, voice cracking. Biology doesn't change that. Judith laughed. Laughed. You're both pathetic. Then she looked at Haley. You're not a Carter. You're a lie. That was it. That was the moment. Because Haley's face, her sweet, innocent face, crumpled. And I saw her break in front of me. I stood up. Get out. You don't get to tell me, Judith, if you say one more word, I will call the police and have you removed. Mark stepped between us then. Mom. Go. Now. She looked at him like he'd stabbed her. Like she was the victim. Then she left. That night, Haley wouldn't come out of her room. Ethan asked if Grandma was going to jail. Liam cried because he thought everyone was mad at him. And me? I cried in the laundry room. Not because I was ashamed, but because I finally saw how far someone would go to control a story they didn't even try to understand. The next day, Mark filed a restraining order against his own mother. And I called a lawyer. Because Judith didn't just insult me. She performed an illegal DNA test on a minor without consent. And now, she was about to learn what happens when you treat a child like a scandal instead of a soul. You'd think after calling me trash in front of my kids, Judith would disappear. You'd think she'd feel some kind of shame. But Judith? She doesn't feel shame. She feels entitled. So when the restraining order was approved, and she couldn't come within 100 feet of my house, she didn't back down. She went to court, filed a motion for grandparent visitation rights, claimed I was withholding her grandchildren, called me unstable, said I was damaging her relationship with her family. And the worst part? She said Haley wasn't biologically part of her lineage. But she still had the right to see her, because I owed her. Mark was stunned. He read the papers twice like maybe he misunderstood. I didn't misunderstand. I knew exactly what this was. This was war. This was a woman who couldn't control me, so she decided to use the legal system to try and claim authority over my kids. We lawyered up. Fast. I hired Kendall Bryant, a fire-breathing custody attorney from downtown Nashville who'd seen every manipulation tactic in the book. When I showed her the DNA report Judith had mailed to Mark's office, she nodded and said, "Good. That's going to hang her in court." The first hearing was surreal. Judith came dressed in pearls and a beige sweater, clutching a printed photo of my kids like they were missing persons. Her attorney opened with, "My client is a loving grandmother who has been wrongfully cut off from the children she helped raise. Her only concern is their emotional well-being." I wanted to laugh. This woman had called my daughter a lie. Now she wanted visitation rights. Kendall stood up slowly, adjusted her glasses, and said, "Your Honor, we will demonstrate that not only did the petitioner violate federal and state privacy laws by securing a genetic test on a minor without consent, but that she has inflicted deep psychological harm on this family, particularly the child in question, Haley Carter." She paused, let it sit, then added, "We will also show that her attempt to claim rights over a child she disavowed as not family is not just manipulative, it is cruel." Judith didn't even blink. She stared at me the whole time, like she still couldn't believe I had the nerve to fight back, like I was supposed to stay in my place. The court ordered temporary no contact while the investigation moved forward. And that's when Judith started leaking. Little messages. Through extended family. Through church friends. Even Lily's school counselor called one day and said Judith had asked her to speak on her behalf. I shut it all down. Filed harassment reports. Made it clear, if she wanted access to my children, she'd have to explain under oath why she tried to destroy us first. Meanwhile, Haley started asking hard questions. She sat on the edge of our bed one night and said, "If Grandma's mad I'm not related to her, does that mean I'm not really yours either?" That one almost broke me. "Baby," I said, "you are mine in every way that matters. Blood doesn't decide that. Love does. But she doesn't love me. No. She loves control. She doesn't know how to love without rules." Haley didn't answer. She just curled into my arms and cried. At the next hearing, Judith brought character witnesses. A neighbor. A church lady. Even Mark's aunt, who claimed Judith deserved to see her grandbabies. Then Kendall pulled out the bomb. A printed transcript of the voice message Judith left on Mark's phone, the one she thought he deleted. "She's garbage. She's been lying to you for years. You're soft for letting that little mistake call you dad." The judge's face went stiff. Kendall raised an eyebrow. "Your Honor, I believe this constitutes intent to emotionally harm a minor." Judith's lawyer stammered something about emotions running high. The judge shut it down. "I don't need to hear another word. This case is done." Ruling. Petition denied. No contact reinforced. Court-ordered therapy recommended for Haley to heal from the emotional trauma. Formal warning issued to Judith regarding future contact. Outside the courtroom, Judith looked like someone had stolen her identity. She turned to Mark. "You're choosing her?" He didn't flinch. "I'm choosing peace." "You're weak." "No," he said. "I was weak for letting you treat us like that for so long." She turned to me. One last glance. "You'll regret this." I stared her down. "No. I regret not doing it sooner." We walked out. Into the sunlight. Into freedom. Into a future where I finally felt like I could breathe. And you know the first thing we did? We took the kids to ice cream. Because after fighting to prove we were a family, we needed to taste joy again. We thought it was over. The court said no contact. The judge issued a formal warning. Judith walked out of that courtroom like someone shut off her oxygen supply. But Judith doesn't lose. Not in her head. She just regroups. It started 2 weeks after the ruling. Haley came home from school with a torn envelope in her backpack. No return address. Just her name, written in cursive with a glitter gel pen, like it came from a friend. I saw it sticking out of her folder and reached for it casually. She froze. "Don't." "What is it?" Nothing. Just a note. But I saw the look in her eyes, the hesitation, the same wide-eyed panic I used to have at 13. I opened it, and my blood turned to ice. Inside, "Sweet girl, I know they're keeping us apart. But one day, when you're old enough, you'll understand. You'll come looking for your real family. The ones who truly care about you. Blood always knows. Love, Grandma Judith." I folded the letter slowly, counted to 10 in my head. Then I asked Haley, "How long have you been getting these?" She stared at the floor. "Since before the court thing." "How many?" She pulled open her nightstand drawer and handed me 4 more. I read every word. They weren't threatening. They were worse. They were calculated. Whispers of guilt. Passive-aggressive jabs. Phrases like, "You didn't do anything wrong. Your mom's just confused." Sometimes adults lie because they're scared of the truth. "You'll always be my first granddaughter. Nothing will change that." This wasn't love. This was psychological warfare. I walked into the kitchen and called Kendall, my lawyer. "She's violating the order," I said. "Mail?" she asked. "Multiple. To my child. All handwritten." "Good," she said. "That's documented. That's a federal violation." I smiled for the first time that week. Let's burn her to the ground. We filed for an emergency hearing the next morning. Judith didn't know. Not until she was served in the parking lot of her church mid-conversation with 3 other grandmas who probably thought she was still the victim. By that Friday, we were back in court. This time, it wasn't about rights. It was about violations. Criminal contempt. She showed up without an attorney, probably thinking she could talk her way out like she always did. The judge asked if she had anything to say. She stood up, smiling. "I'm just a grandmother trying to stay connected." It was just mail. Kendall stood up, dropped the stack of letters in a plastic evidence bag on the bench, and said, "Would you like us to read them aloud, Your Honor?" The judge glanced at the bag, sighed, and turned to Judith. "You were warned. Explicitly. You crossed a line." Judith blinked like she didn't understand the words. "But she's my blood." "That argument expired when you weaponized it," the judge said. Verdict: 6 months probation, no contact, extended to 2 years court-ordered family therapy for Haley. On Judith's dime, criminal contempt recorded. But the best moment? When the judge turned to me and said, "Mrs. Carter, if she violates this again, we will pursue jail time." I nodded. Not because I wanted her in jail. Because I wanted Haley safe. We drove home in silence. Until Haley said, "She really hates me, doesn't she?" "No, baby," I said. "She doesn't hate you. She just doesn't know how to love someone she can't control." Haley stared out the window. "I hate her." "That's okay," I said. "You don't owe her grace. You owe yourself peace." The next day, I bought a shredder. Every letter Judith ever sent. Gone. Not out of spite. Out of self-defense. I also got Haley a journal. Told her she could write anything. Everything. No judgment. No rules. Just truth. And on the first page, in shaky handwriting, she wrote, "I'm not a mistake. I'm a miracle." I had to step out of the room. Because you don't cry in front of a kid who just started healing. You let her feel safe for once. By the end of the month, Judith was gone from all our lives. No texts. No letters. No emails from flying monkeys in the family. Just quiet. Heavy, aching, beautiful quiet. The letters didn't work. The court failed her. Haley refused to break. So Judith turned to the one person she thought she could still manipulate, Mark. My husband. The man who stood by me in court. The man who filed the restraining order. The man who once told her, "You're not going to destroy my family." But blood runs deep, and Judith knew how to dig. It started with an email. Sent to Mark's work account from an anonymous address. No subject. Just an attachment titled, "The Truth About Amanda." He showed it to me that night. Didn't even try to hide it. "You need to see this." Inside, a scanned image of my old hospital intake form. The one from the night of the assault. Judith had gotten a copy. How? We still don't know. Maybe through an old friend at the ER. Maybe through a backdoor contact. Maybe she lied and posed as a family member. Either way, she got it. And sent it to Mark like it was some dirty secret I'd been hiding. Below the scan was a message. "She lied to you from day one. This is who she really is. You don't owe her anything. Leave while you still have dignity." Mark looked sick. Not angry. Not betrayed. Just sick. "She had no right," he whispered. "She wants to tear us apart," I said, voice low. "And if we give her this, even one fight, one doubt, she wins." But she wasn't done. 3 days later, Mark got a manila envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside? Photos. Old ones. Me. In college, drunk at a party. With friends. With a guy I don't even remember. Back from before the trauma. Before Haley. Before Mark. Written on the back, in red pen. "This is the mother of your children?" and a post-it note. Still believe she's innocent? I sat on the kitchen floor. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. Just held the photos in my lap and let the humiliation settle into my bones. Judith didn't care what was real. She cared about perception. She wanted to rewrite my story, one page at a time. That night, Mark came home early, found me still on the floor. He sat down next to me, didn't say anything for a while. Then he took the photos from my hand and tore them in half. She thought this would change how I see you. Did it? No, he said. It reminded me who you were before you had to carry this family, before she broke something in you. I wasn't perfect. Neither was I, he said. But I didn't raise a daughter in love after surviving hell. He kissed my forehead. And for the first time in weeks, I let myself fall apart. The next day, we filed a police report. Harassment, defamation, data theft. We gave them everything, the emails, the photos, the letters, the voice messages. They opened a formal investigation. And this time, we didn't just want a warning. We wanted charges. Meanwhile, I met with a therapist. Not for the court. Not for anyone else. For me. Because when someone tries to rewrite your past, they don't just hurt your present, they infect every part of your memory. I sat on that couch and said, she's trying to make me feel dirty again. The therapist nodded. Because if she can make you ashamed, she doesn't have to feel guilty. Haley noticed the shift. She started asking again, is Grandma still mad at us? She's not mad, I said. She's desperate. Will she stop? No. But we will. Judith made one last move. A handwritten letter, again, sent to Mark's work. But this time, it wasn't guilt. It was pure manipulation. I forgive you, son. You were just blinded. Come home. I'll take care of Haley like she was my own. But Amanda, she's sick. She needs help. Save yourself before it's too late. She signed it. Your mother, always. Mark tore it up without showing me. Told me after. She's never setting foot in our lives again. Not even if she changes? She doesn't change. She just finds new ways to hurt. By the time the police called us with an update, I didn't even flinch. We have enough to recommend charges. Harassment. Stalking. Unauthorized access of medical data. Do it, I said. Are you sure? I'm done playing nice. We haven't told the kids yet. Not fully. But Haley asked me something last night. Mom, was she always like this? I thought for a moment. No. She was worse when I stayed quiet. There's a certain kind of silence that comes when you know someone's finally afraid of you. Not because you threatened them. Not because you screamed or broke something. But because you stopped being afraid of them. That was the silence Judith sat in now. Facing criminal charges. 2 months after she sent that last letter to Mark, the police called me again. She's been formally charged. Harassment. Unlawful surveillance. Medical privacy violation. We'll be scheduling a hearing within the month. I said thank you and hung up. Then I sat on the edge of my bed, stared at the wall, and let it land. Not satisfaction. Not revenge. Just relief. Like a weight ID carried for 13 years finally slipped off my shoulders. 3 days later, I got a knock at the door. I opened it, expecting a neighbor or package delivery. It was Tom, Mark's brother, the one who moved to Knoxville years ago after Judith nearly ruined his engagement. He stood there with his hands in his hoodie pockets, looking older, leaner, and way too nervous. Can we talk? I didn't answer. Just stepped aside. He sat at the table, looked around. Same house. Same hell, I said flatly. He let out a dry breath. She asked me to talk to you. She's scared, Amanda. Good. She's not well. You think I'm well? He looked down, then pulled a letter out of his jacket. She wrote you this. I didn't take it. You read it. Yeah. She says she's sorry. Says she crossed a line. I laughed. Which one? The courtroom line? The DNA test line? The medical records line? The photo blackmail line? The letter to my husband line? Or when she told my daughter she wasn't real? Tom said nothing. If she wants mercy, I said, she should have thought about that before she tried to erase my life with a manila envelope. He finally said it. She doesn't want you to testify. There it was. Not love. Not guilt. Not growth. Fear. The one emotion Judith had always tried to infect others with, now staring her in the face. I didn't say no. But I didn't say yes either. Instead, I went to the courthouse the next morning and met with Kendall, my attorney. She wants a deal, I said. She wants to avoid the hearing. Kendall tilted her head. What do you want? I looked her in the eye. I want her out of my life. Legally. Forever. She nodded once. Then we make that the condition. The offer was simple. Judith could plead guilty. Avoid a trial. Avoid the humiliation of public testimony, including photos, letters, voicemail transcripts. But in exchange, 0 contact for 10 years. No public statements. No third-party communication. No proximity to my children or my husband. No financial claim. No property disputes. No loopholes. One violation equals jail. Period. 2 days later, Kindle got the call. Judith had accepted. She folded. She took the deal. The following week, we met at the courthouse. Final paperwork. Signatures. Conditions reviewed aloud. She didn't look at me once. Didn't speak. Didn't cry. But when she signed her name at the bottom of the court order, I finally breathed. Because she wasn't just leaving. She was legally barred from ever coming near us again. Mark and I walked out together. He squeezed my hand. You okay? I'm clean, I said. He smiled. You've always been. That night, I sat down with Haley. Told her everything. Not the worst details, but enough. Enough to explain why she wouldn't see Grandma again. Why there'd be no more letters. No more whispers. No more weight on her shoulders. She nodded slowly, then said, I never felt like she saw me. Me neither, I said. She paused. So what now? I smiled. Now we live. But it didn't stop there. Because 1 week after the ruling, Judith sent a letter to the local church bulletin. One of those thinly veiled prayer requests where gossip is disguised as concern. It read, Please pray for my family, especially my grandchildren, who've been taken from me by someone very lost and deeply disturbed. May the Lord heal broken hearts and restore what lies have stolen. I saw it online, posted by someone from church, tagging Haley. That was the last straw. We filed for a civil suit. Defamation, malicious emotional distress, violation of the court's terms. Kindle sent the cease and desist that night. Judith never responded, but she deleted her accounts, disappeared from social media, and by the end of that month, she sold her house and moved 2 counties over. Not because she was chased out, because she ran out of people to control. I'm not angry anymore, not even bitter, just tired. Tired of explaining why survivors don't owe anyone their silence. Tired of people thinking kindness means weakness. Tired of living in fear of a woman whose only weapon was shame. But I'll tell you what I did feel the night we got the final order signed. Power. The quiet kind. The kind that doesn't gloat, doesn't scream, doesn't post about it. It just stands. I stood for my daughter. For my family. For the version of me I buried years ago, the girl on the bathroom floor, staring at a test she didn't ask for, wondering how to survive. She survived. And she became me. We were folding laundry when she asked me. No build-up. No dramatic pause. Just the kind of soft, brave question only a 12-year-old can ask. Mom, can I know everything now? I looked at her, arms full of towels, and suddenly I wasn't in the living room anymore. I was back in that alley. Back on that hospital bed. Back in the stall with 2 pink lines and a fist over my mouth to stop the scream. But then I looked again, and I saw her. Not the reminder of that night, but the reason I survived it. We sat down, and I told her. All of it. No metaphors. No euphemisms. No edits to protect her from the weight of it. Because the truth is, she already knew. Not the details, but the feeling. Kids always feel when the room tenses. When adults flinch. When names are spoken with a tone that says, not safe. I told her about how I met her dad after it happened. How I told him the truth before our second date. How he chose her, not just me, every single time. I told her about Judith. About the DNA test. About the Sunday lunch. And I told her about the letters. The court. The pain. All of it. She didn't cry. She didn't gasp. She just sat there, small fingers clutching the hem of her hoodie, and said, so that's why she looked at me like I didn't belong. I nodded. She was wrong. I know. She reached out and hugged me. Tight. Longer than usual. And whispered, I'm glad you didn't let her win. I held her like my life depended on it. Because for years, it had. Later that night, I found her sitting in her room, writing. What are you working on? She smiled. Just me. I looked down at the notebook. It said, things that make me real, my mom, my dad, my brothers, my voice, my story, my name. That was the moment I knew she'd be okay. Not because I'd fixed everything, but because I'd stopped hiding the cracks. I told Mark about the conversation. He nodded. I'm proud of you. She deserved the truth. So did you. We didn't celebrate that night. We didn't go out to dinner or open a bottle of wine. We just sat together, watched Haley read a book on the couch, listened to the boys argue about a video game, and felt, maybe for the first time in a long time, whole. Not in a perfect family kind of way, but in a we know who we are and that's enough kind of way. I've stopped checking the mail for letters. I don't flinch when I see women Judith's age in the store. I don't watch my kids like someone's going to steal them from me. I just live. Quietly. Gratefully. Without apology. And I finally burned the last letter. The first one, The one where she called me trash. I stood in the backyard, held it over a tin can, and watched it curl. It didn't feel triumphant. It felt clean, like the end of a sentence I've been writing in my head for years. Judith still exists somewhere. Maybe she tells her side of the story to anyone who will listen. Maybe she believes it. Maybe she tells strangers that her son married a liar and she lost her grandchildren to a courtroom and a therapist. But I don't care, because I didn't lose. I just stopped letting broken people narrate my life. One day, maybe Haley will ask more. Ask deeper. Ask what happened that night, who he was, what I felt, how I made it through. And when she does, I'll tell her the same thing I told her at 12. I didn't survive that night to be a victim forever. I survived it so you could exist, so you could speak, so you could be louder than me. She already is. And that's how I know I won. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it too.